It's time to be woke, take off your shades, it helps see through the smoke, cause the wicked hide behind the cloak, and if you stay in the mist, you gon' be soaked, so listen up, cause this hair of the dog, what's real, what ain't, is this the fog or smog, cause there's a difference when you breathe it in, so don't let the corporate media take you for a spin, this that morning show, they put you in the know, so I hope that you ready, cause all we do is go, 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 yeah, come get your info, you gon' be like, whoa. Hair of the dog, we bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Spitting the facts.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hair of the Dog. I'm Andy Kennedy. How is everyone doing on this fine Monday morning? It's at this point, I really am not even just going to talk about the weather. I'm just going to talk about the fact that we've survived for another few days. It's all good. Everybody's happy. Just consider yourself an expert in exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. It's all good. This morning, we are going to kick off the month with the month theme, which is Carrie Barber, what is it again?
Hey, good morning, Andy. This is the first day of International Women's Month, so go girl.
Was I blocking it out?
So this is the purpose of our show, women behaving badly. So the whole concept is during the Trump administration, it was women who behave badly have changed the world. And we're still seeing that now, except these women, most of them, are changing it for the worst. And these are your cancel Karen and all the other ladies, particularly in the White House, oddly enough, who are continuing the gaslighting, but doing it with flair. So it's totally acceptable. So we're going to talk about some of that today and educate you on what there goes my dog. What a parliamentarian actually is.
All right. Hang on a second, Carrie. I can't actually hear you right now. So if you would like to yell at your dog, you have my permission.
All right, let me explain what's happening here. And this is going to sound incredibly crazy. I was telling a girlfriend about this. Okay, so we have a murder of crows that lives across the street in a very, very big tree. And they actually got me this weekend because I hear this. It sounded like a puppy whining, but a weird puppy whining. And I'm looking around for it. And I look up and one of these crows has learned how to mimic a puppy whining.
Oh, no.
Good. So their source of entertainment is because one of the conditions of being here is my dogs can't bark excessively. And so every time the dog, Finn, barks, he gets admonished, hey, no bark, whatever. So we're working with him. We're trying to be patient. But what happened was these crows it's Sunday morning, like 7 a.m. And one of them is mimicking this puppy whining. So of course my dog starts going nuts and I yell at my dog, hey, no bark. And I hear all the crows. I'm like, oh God, we're entertainment now for these.
Oh my God.
Crows.
I just got this picture of a bunch of teenage crows with the little triangular glasses and a spliff hanging out of their mouth and that.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but this is what's going on. So now the crows are hanging out in the tree out front, antagonizing the dog. So my apologies if they start barking. I will be quiet. Andy will tell you a dad joke. Yeah.
I don't think that our audience needs to suffer because of your pain.
Right, exactly. So good morning to everybody who's joining. Mike, yes, it's morning again, and it's a happy Monday morning. So come on, get with it. If you're just tuning in for the first time, or if Facebook has allowed you to see this video at all,
Or if you're just lost.
right, welcome. So we are live and interactive, and we do take your comments, questions, critiques, all of that sort of thing during the show. So if you type it, particularly on our Facebook page, Digital Liberation Live, we'll see it, and we want you to join in. So this is YouTube, Twitter, all of these sort of things. So awesome. But let's get into it, and let's start off with everybody's favorite. Yeah, Mike, a murder of crows. The crows, keep that up. There will be a murder of crows. Yeah, you can't touch them. They're protected. They know it.
Clearly, they didn't see your blog where you were talking about your shotguns.
Yeah, you can't. They know they're fine. Yeah, so let's get started with everybody's favorite progressive, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC.
Here we go.
So this one, I think, is she's dynamic. She is right on point, and she's a few years too late with this one. So this tweet I thought was very telling because it just shows the dynamic between red team, blue team, right? So if you will recall, when the Trump administration decided to bomb in Syria, the narrative that we heard from the left and the right was this is the first time he actually looks presidential. So apparently to be president, and as we talk about, since we're hair of the dog, when a dog goes and claims something and pees on it, if you're president, the first thing you got to do is bomb another country, a sovereign nation. So when Trump did it, MSM, Fox, all of these people, pundits were saying he looks presidential. He looks it. But this was AOC's take on it. The profound danger we just did in Syria, referring to the bombing, a mad king president with a majority disapproval of Americans just decided to bomb a nation without the constitutional requirement of congressional approval. Democrats who take war money passed the law allowing that. So this just happened, and I don't recall, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall AOC weighing in on Biden. Biden did not get congressional approval. Syria is still a sovereign nation. You still have to have congressional approval for any type of action like this. You cannot just arbitrarily go in and risk having us in a war with Iran. And then I've seen Rational National and a few others make the point about why are we still in Iraq at all? Well, we'll get into that, but I think most of our viewers already know why we're there. It's hello oil. It's the same reason we're meddling in elections in Venezuela and sanctions and all of that sort of thing. It's all because of oil. We are literally crack addicts protecting crack and killing ourselves in the process. So,
Yep.
So the legality of this is kind of what I want to focus on, because much of our program here is going to be on the outskirts of legality. So kudos to you, AOC from 2018. We would like to have that AOC back now, please. That would be great.
And I think, you know what, I'm still on the fence about AOC. I'm not, I haven't abandoned her because I think that we have to remember is that she's very young and she's extremely new to politics still, right? So I think she's in her own mind trying to figure out the best way forward in a system that is completely corrupt, right?
I'll give her that, but it's not like she just got there, right? Like I will give that to Cori Bush.
I agree very much, but she is and my biggest thing is that it's the experience of how things work and her place in it and what they've told her and what she knows. That's all going to eventually come out, right? And it's going to solidify a path forward for her in her brain. I just don't think she's there yet, right? And if anything, the fact that the squad is what it is, you know, it worked great in theory, right? I just think that still has to iron itself out. And, you know, I think that we have to, I don't want to abandon her. And I don't want other people to say, oh, she's a sellout now. It's done. We'll never see her again. She's got her time served, her pension. She's going to just coast to the end. I think that couldn't be further from the truth.
Okay, so we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to go with Kami John here, who says AOC is trying to climb the career ladder, right? When you get elected, what is the first rule? Get reelected. And that she did that successfully. So now what we need to see is something a little more than performative. And yes, she has gone into a quagmire of corruption, absolutely. But again, this is, you've got to make the choice. Are you going to work on getting reelected, or are you actually working on change? So this is where we need some martyrs here.
But there has to be, you have to come to a consensus in your brain what the fine line is between those two things, because if you don't have one, you don't have the other, right? I'm going to play apparently devil's advocate here and say that I think that shoe hasn't fallen yet. I don't think it's dropped yet. I think we have to wait until AOC understands her role in all of this and her path forward. And, you know, none of us are there. None of us know the neoliberal pressure on every single politician and whatever games and whatever threats have been made against her, right? Because her enemies have all the power right now. And that's huge.
This is where it comes to us, independent journalism, to help educate the public, to give her backing, right? So here is where I will give her the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to show you what the next play is, because, oh, by the way, Force the Vote has come back. But this time, Force the Vote is being used by the squad to push for the Fight for 15. And we're going to talk about why the Fight for 15 is a thing now and why it didn't get included because of this parliamentarian. So we'll talk about that. So Mike says, we would like to have AOC back, and the best we can do is, well, nothing. And I'm with you, Mike. So Andy, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we have no power. We have no influence. All we can do is talk about it, because everybody who had the pink hat has hung up their shoes now. Everything's cool.
Well, yeah, and I agree. But I also agree with the premise that right now, especially on the left, there's a tendency now to put the emphasis on people's differences, right? The movement gets a heck of a lot easier when we put the emphasis on what we have in common.
Okay, so I have nothing in common with AOC. Zero. I don't have health insurance as paid.
Don't know about that.
No,
but
no.
anyways, let's put this in a shoebox for now. Okay.
Right.
This is a whole other show. Let's continue with our show. Okay.
Very good. Very good.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So AOC is off limits now. So all right. Let's move on to this Fight for 15. So we saw back in November, when it was coming time to vote for Pelosi, the Fight for 15, and that was successfully derailed and focused on a jagoff comic rather than the actual issue at hand. So good job, neolibs, on doing that. So now Fight for 15 is the new Force the Vote. Why is that? Well, what we saw is the raising of the minimum wage had originally been included in the House bill for COVID relief, amongst other things. And then some arbitrary parliamentarian said, oh, no, you can't do that under cloture rules. And everybody is kind of like, first off, what's a parliamentarian? So I want to explain this to you so that you understand it. And the first thing that I want to talk about is Robert's Rules of Order. And this is just amazing because if you understand Robert's rules, this is where knowledge is some serious power for you. Because every organizing body, every governmental body in this country, including your county party, is supposed to be run by Robert's rules. And if you know the rules of the game better than the people running the meeting, you own it. And one example that I want to give you is our dear friend here, Joseph Trano, who passed away from COVID 2 weeks ago. He actually had an example where he uses to his advantage. His corrupt county party in Georgia was trying to advance new elections for leadership roles without following Robert's rules and doing so improperly. And because Joseph and his progressive cohorts understood Robert's Rules of Orders, they were able to just stand up and say, point of order, and then say what was wrong. Point of order, what was wrong. And Robert's Rules of Orders goes back to the UK and parts of France. And the reason we adopted it here in this country is because the way the rules work, everybody gets a moment to make their case, to argue a point, to try to bring people to their side. And this is where Robert's Rules is so powerful, because you get that moment to make your case. And even though like I'm the chair of the meeting, or I am the lead in the Senate, the pro tempore doing the actual work, if I go out of order, you can stop me. If you have a point you want to make about a bill, you can stop it. If you want to stop the entire vote, you can stop it. If you want the vote to proceed and the conversations and arguments to end, you can do that too. And this is open to every member of that body. So think about it. At your county party level, as Joseph had done, you're just a nobody. You're just a volunteer like everyone else. You don't have the seat of power. You're not a chair, vice chair, whatever. But if you understand how these rules work, now you've leveled the playing field, right? So I did include a link in our chat. Robert's Rules of Order is an easy cheat sheet. There's only a few pages of it, but if you just learn these terms and when they come into play, you got it. Absolutely. And so this goes for your library board, your school board, your county board, all the way up to Congress. So you got to know this stuff. And for those people who are online who are saying, what's Robert's Rules? I'm like, oh, you've never been to a school board meeting. You have never been to a library meeting. And what's nice about it is if at your local level, somebody's trying to end run things and not following Robert's Rules of Order, guarantee you it's in their bylaws. So you can just say, point of order, can you please follow Robert's Rules like the bylaws say you're supposed to? And you're done. There you go. So there's so much power in knowing this, and it's pretty simple. It's really very simple. And if you look at it like a game, Monopoly, you got to learn the rules to Monopoly if you want to win, right? So Robert's Rules is exactly the same. So I highly encourage everyone to look at it and to go over it. And I gotta say, I was having a conversation where we're part of the support group helping Siemens High School change their name in the district, because the students there found out that I forget, Fred Jack Siemens, whatever his name is, from Topeka, was a leader in the Klan. He was a Cyclops, whatever level. Why do shitty groups have their leaders named after monsters?
It's kind of appropriate, isn't it?
Right. So this guy, he was such a nice gentleman, was also a Cyclops level in the Klan. And so they were like, wait, we don't want to have our students go in a football game wearing the jersey of a Klan member anymore. We want to change the name. So what was exciting to me personally is these students knew Robert's Rules. They knew it, they've studied it. So kudos to their teacher there who gave them these tools, because now they can use that knowledge to go forward in their own school board meeting and change the name of the school. So, whew,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Hello.
it's very, very powerful stuff. So that's Robert's Rules. The other thing is parliamentarian. Who's a parliamentarian? What is this? How does a parliamentarian in Congress stop and shut everything down? Well, realistically, they don't. So a parliamentarian, like go back to the sports analogy, baseball, football, whatever you want, is like a referee. This is the person who has been certified in Robert's Rules and then the rules of the body, the organizing body. So whether it's the Senate in Congress, the House in Congress, your school board, county, all of these rules, they have a working functional knowledge of all of these things. Typically on a local level, it's going to be an attorney who specializes in parliamentarian rules. So they are your referee. So if you're standing at a library board meeting, assuming there's a parliamentarian or somebody acting in that capacity, and you go point of order, and then here's where you went wrong. The parliamentarian, everybody's going to look at them and say, well, are they right? And the parliamentarian will say yes or no, or show them how to walk it back, or to get things back on track.
Yes, absolutely. And it doesn't matter your governing body what form it takes, right? Because in the US you have the Senate and you have Congress. In Canada and the UK you have Parliament, right? And it's so the systems are slightly differently set up, but every single one of them has a speaker, right, who is in charge. And basically, like it is with Nancy with the gavel, and Canada has a Speaker of the House, and so does the UK. So these are all because, if you didn't have a referee, the members of the government would just behave badly and yell and scream at each other and get in a big fist fight, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So this is why you have the referee, and anybody could go. And so this is a career choice. If you want to go, and I posted a link to the organization that's helps certify and train parliamentarians. You don't have to be an attorney. And what a lucrative career. You could just be the traveling parliamentarian going to your local school board meeting, whatever. So it's an opinion. It's an opinion. It is not necessarily binding unless, your bylaws and your organization say that it is. Then it becomes binding by your bylaws, not because of the role of the parliamentarian. So in Congress, the opinion of the parliamentarian is not binding. That means we can listen to it or we can reject it. Everybody got that? We can listen to it or we can. So if a referee decides that there's a holding penalty on the field, then the coaches can go, no, there wasn't. Right?
Yeah.
And that has happened. That has happened quite a bit. So what we saw, the fight for 15 came out of this parliamentarian in the Senate saying, wait, you're in a cloture motion because of the filibuster. And we're going to back up and talk about that too. But you're in this procedure and there is a narrow framework where these things don't really apply, and all these other things that look just like this one we call fight for 15, those are okay, but we're going to pull out the fight for 15. Here's what actually happened, and this is my opinion. Fight for 15 was pulled out because of donors, and the parliamentarian is being used as an excuse. And the reason I say that is, as I mentioned just a moment ago, the parliamentarian opinion is an opinion. It is non-binding. We chose, by we, I mean our, our elected representatives chose to take it as a binding order. And we pulled out the fight for 15. We didn't have to. I think that was done because of donors, and they're going to move it ahead and give us this performative fight for 15. Yay, everybody. By the way, the push for $15 an hour doesn't actually start till 2026. By then, that $15 should be $25, not 15. So it's in my mind largely performative and meant to be a distraction, but we gotta follow along and do it anyway because 725 is ridiculous. So that's what's going on there in Congress. So let's get back to this. Why does this have to be done in the first place? Wait, let me get to Mike. Mike brings up a rule in Robert's rules. It's called call the question, and I've heard this. I've said it. This is one of my favorite. Call the question. So a lot of boards treat call the question as a Robert's Rules order as an instant end to debate when someone says, I call the question. I call the question is we need to move forward and vote on this. This is me standing up saying, I've heard enough. We've all heard enough. We need to move this forward and vote. And Mike's point is call the question requires a 2/3 supermajority vote to call the question. So just me standing up saying, okay, stop. I call the question. Now it goes back to the people who vote, and 2/3 have to say, yeah, we call the question. Let's vote on it. If you don't get a majority, then that debate continues. So this is kind of how the rules work, right? So call the question is really, okay, guys, we recognize what you're doing. You're going on too long. You're repeating yourselves. I'm done with this. And it lets everybody know that, hey, we need to move forward. Doesn't necessarily mean you do move forward. So good point there. But for what's going on right now in Congress with the cloture is being enacted because of the filibuster. Do you remember when Biden hadn't yet taken the oath and we were discussing the filibuster and maybe getting rid of it? And Chuck Schumer, the majority lead in the Senate, met with Mitch McConnell, the minority lead, and we're discussing the filibuster. Apparently Chuck Schumer lost because we still have a filibuster. Filibuster is when call the question or something else comes forward and somebody says, no, I object. You no longer have to stand there like what was that? Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. You no longer have to stand there for 20 hours and just talk. All you have to do is say, I object. And unless you have 60 votes on your side, you cannot move that forward. So that's the filibuster. And there's a really great write-up about the filibuster that I put in the links. Let me make sure I call this one out. So this is from Brookings University. Yeah, they're kind of a university. It's a think tank, but they were talking about the Senate filibuster and what it would take to eliminate it. And I thought this was a really good article because it was written a couple of years ago, but it still applies. So they go through the history of it. And if you recall, under the Obama administration, when Obama had the House and Senate and the White House, all the Democrats were there, McConnell used this filibuster and set a new record. It was like 326 times. Whereas this rule came in by Vice President Aaron Burr in 1806. This is not a constitutional thing. He just created it. And it had never really been used until this came through. So it's an amazing mischaracterization of a rule being used by the minority to stop legislation by the majority. So yeah, so we still have the filibuster. So the ways around the filibuster is you can change the rule on the filibuster, which Schumer decided not to do. So now they call it the nuclear option, which is going to a cloture vote. And in the cloture process, which this article covers beautifully, so I'm not going to, you have homework, read it. In this, there is this little known rule called the Byrd Rule, and this is BYRD. And I believe this was named after that lovely Southern gentleman who was also a Klan member. So yay.
There's surprise.
Yeah, so this is the Byrd Rule, and I put a link on this one. And this one's amazing to me because when we go back to the parliamentarian who objected to the Fight for 15, there are 6 classifications that a proposal must meet in order to be prohibited in the Budget Act. So this parliamentarian conceivably looked at the Fight for 15, not everything else, and said, no, 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 this doesn't go. This doesn't go. So what was in the bill itself was money for states for COVID, money for schools, I believe your $1,400 check if you make less than $75,000 in 2019. Doesn't matter if you were laid off last year, you don't qualify. So all of that went into that bill, but the $15 an hour was pulled out. And here are the qualifications. They call them tests, rule tests. Does this provision produce a change in outlays or revenues for the government? Maybe. Wage taxes? Maybe. Does it produce changes in outlays or revenues which are merely incidental to the non-budgetary components of the provision? No. Is it outside the jurisdiction of the committee that submitted the title for provision of the inclusion in the reconciliation measure? No, it's a federal minimum wage. Does it increase outlays or decrease revenue if the provision's title as a whole fails to achieve the Senate Reporting Committee's reconciliation instructions? No, doesn't apply. Does it increase net outlays or decrease revenue during a fiscal year after the years covered by the reconciliation bill, unless the provision's title as a whole remains budget neutral? No, Fight for 15 would be carried forward, not retroactive. Does it contain recommendations regarding the OASDI, Social Security Trust Fund? Yeah, it does. So of these 6 provisions, 2 apply, yet the parliamentarian ruled that the entire thing had to be thrown out. So if I was Chuck Schumer or in the White House, I would look at the Byrd Rule and say, well, it has not met all 6 of these qualifications. I understand your opinion. Respectfully, I disagree, and we're going to keep it in there. But they didn't. So we're left to speculate as to why, other than now we have this really handy Fight for 15 and force the vote thing coming back around, and it keeps us distracted from, other really important things like that check for $1,400. Did you catch that? That it's going by the income, the last reported income from 2019, not 2020. So if you were one of the 25 million people in this country who lost your employment because of COVID, then you may not qualify for a $1,400 check. Nobody's talking about that. And that is really discouraging. Well, not nobody. Stephanie Kelton is. Do you want to put up this?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Great segue.
Yeah. So here's another woman behaving badly, but she's actually doing it in the right way. So here's Stephanie Kelton. For those of you who don't know who Stephanie Kelton is, shame on you. But she is a global leading economist, and she speaks truth to power all the time. Fortunately, she is also a consultant to some of these members of Congress. Please, Stephanie, get them on the right path. But here she's talking about, and this is a tweet, February 27, 21, when 2 Democratic senators threatened to sink Medicare, LBJ intervened in the last minute, and the rest is history. So what I saw in this tweet, and I cannot speak for Dr. Kelton here, is she's saying that the White House is being milquetoast when it comes to things that really are necessary, not nice to have, but necessary right now for the American family. All of us need this stuff. And she points to a Republican, LBJ, who was he Republican? Somebody help me out here. I get confused. I think he was Republican, like he was a conservative, and I can't remember if that was before the Southern Strategy.
That really doesn't mean anything, does it?
It doesn't. So I'm confused. But LBJ was a conservative, and he did a lot of amazing things because at the time people were ready to revolt. And we have gone far past what people in this country had to deal with then. But here was a president who knew and recognized we've got to let off steam or the people will revolt. And so he used the bully pulpit and everything that he needed to do to get these things passed because they are humane and they help people, and that's how you grow GDP, right? So here Stephanie is reminding folks of what leadership looks like. Not bombing in Syria. That's not necessarily leadership. Maybe bad leadership, but she's reminding everyone here. So thank you, Dr. Kelton, for making a clear statement about what needs to be done while we're going through parliamentarians and the Byrd Rule and cloture and all of the stuff that you're not meant to understand because it's meant to keep you quiet in your ignorance, right? The reason they didn't allow slaves to learn to read, but we're going to teach you how to read. So, yeah, Annie, this might be a good time to introduce, because I've been talking a lot, the series that you're doing with Macker and Cheese. You're on episode 3 now.
Oh no, you the new Untouchables.
The Untouchables, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're currently. This is a addendum to a docuseries that is being released called The Con, which is a production by Patrick Lavelle and Eric Vaughn, and it is an actual in-depth of what really happened to create all of the issues that came up during the great financial crisis, why that happened, and what its origins were, and it's very appropriate right now because it's and I know people are going to say that, well, what about The Big Short and the other movies that came out to explain it? Well, quite honestly, those movies didn't tell the story, the real story, right? They were out there and they were more for an entertainment value, but they were Hollywoodized to be more entertaining than informative, right? And what The Con and the new Untouchables, the Pecora Files, shows is that the business model of Wall Street is fraud, from top to bottom. It's all of the reasons why people lost their homes or their jobs in 2008 was because of banks and Wall Street being corrupt and the fraud that is inherent in that system since the dismantling and removal of the Glass-Steagall Act. And so it's a very appropriate thing to watch, and it's very entertaining. It's actually kind of shocking too if you've not ever looked into it, and how this exact same scenario happened and created the Great Depression in 1929, right? And what happened to put rules in place with the Glass-Steagall Act to make sure that the big banks and Wall Street didn't misbehave in the same way. And the subsequent 30s, 40s, 50s, up to the 60s of the best era of the United States, where people were the happiest, ensued because of FDR and Ferdinand Pecora, who was the original untouchable lawyer who put all of those bad acting bankers in jail, right? And this whole series shows us that in 2008, those same frauds were happening, right? They were able to get rid of that act that put those processes back to normal, to make people, take away that opportunity for fraud in the system, right? And the result we saw in '08 was basically a mirror of what happened in the Great Depression, when the stock market crashed in 1929. And the difference between that was Ferdinand Pecora and FDR did the things they needed to do to take that away from them. And in '08, '09, 2010, Obama and Eric Holder bailed out the banks and gave everybody a pass, and they did nothing. And that's why the US now is in the place where it is, because the corporately owned neoliberal regime that the US has had since Reagan, is not serious about helping people. They're only serious about helping rich people and helping themselves. That's why this series is so important right now.
I would go one step further, and this is why I think that the series that you have been working on, and kudos to you, it's phenomenal, ties in with what Kelton was saying, because it's the same era. And so when we backed off of those rules and regulations that we saw were vital and necessary, it's no wonder we're back in a worse place. We are actually in a worse situation now than what they were facing in the Great Depression. And by they, I mean the people, regular people, not the one percenters. But I will make one distinction, and this is critical, and I need people to pay attention to this. We've been talking about it here. The difference between what happened then and happened now is censorship. They need this censorship to go through so that you don't understand what is happening. They need voices like ours, like everyone on independent media, love it, hate it, whatever. We're the only ones talking about this, and they are trying so hard to make us obsolete on Facebook, social media, whatever. So this is the last graphic, and I want to put this up there. And if this is from someone by the name of Best Socialist, I don't know this person, but they made an excellent point here, and they put the examples so starkly together that you cannot help but understand what they're saying here. So on one side, you've got the White House, and this was totally under the radar. The White House defends the decision not to punish the Saudi crown prince for murdering a journalist. Murdering a journalist. Do you remember Khashoggi was murdered in the embassy? The U.S. embassy in Turkey. And the White House has decided, no, we're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to, even though he was a guest of ours. No. And then on the other side, Biden has still got sanctions against Venezuela. So here in this example, the focus is on punishment, which is sanctions. But I want you to understand this. When people on the left are talking about we need to silence the Trumpers and all of this sort of thing, what they're really talking about is silencing us and our network. They could give a shit less about parlay and all of that sort of thing, because they don't want you to know. They don't want conservatives to see our program. And by our, I don't mean just DLF. I mean blanket. But they don't want conservatives to see this, to understand macroeconomics, because then, oh boy, now we have a super majority of Americans who are aware, who are fiscally literate, who understand what a parliamentarian is, who understand that the Byrd Rule is in effect, and everything that they're putting out of the White House right now is complete and utter bullshit. And why can I say that confidently? Because the White House now has asked the entire press corps for their questions in advance. And I did have a tweet from the press secretary, what's her name? I forget it. Nice little Polish lady, where she herself had tweets condescending towards the previous administration, their decisions. And yet I saw her this weekend making those exact same statements in defense of her new boss who pays her, signs her paycheck. So what is going on from a journalism standpoint is terrifying. And I don't get scared easy. I've been through martial law. I've been shot at. I've been through bombings, all of this sort of thing. This terrifies me. And I need people to see it. I need you to see it. This is outright fascism, and it's under the Biden administration. And I'll try to put all of this stuff together so you can see what I see when I talk about censorship and everything that they're doing for journalists. I'm a union member journalist, and I've already been labeled QAnon by YouTube, owned by Google and ABC. Twitter is now canceling accounts if you happen to be from a country that we are going to bomb. What? So all of this to me is the scariest aspect of what we're seeing in the financial policy and what they're marching out through Congress. So this is why, Andy, I'm going to come down on you a little bit harder in your defense of AOC, because if I see it, I know she sees it. And I've heard her say that we need to clamp down on social media and those narratives. So I recognize I have a bias, but in my defense, I am more likely to die in prison as a journalist than you are in Canada.
I would have to agree with you on that.
Right. So this is why maybe I'm a little, I'm ratcheted up just a little bit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and ultimately, Carrie, we don't have to agree on everything, right?
Oh, sure.
That's the whole push of our show, right? Is that we take everybody's opinions into consideration. We talk about them here, but we don't have an argument. We have a discussion, and that's
exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, yeah. So these are the important points that we really need you to understand, and this is why pulling in the information that Andy's working on, all of these things really matter. And then I feel awkward and weird doing this, but I had my own special report come out on Saturday. And to me, this is a little bit of hyperbole, but it is the only legal way that you can own another human being in this country and get away with it. And so if you missed that report, it was about on estate trafficking. And so again, here's another Hollywood movie that kind of glamorized it and took it out of scope. Was Netflix has a movie called I Care a Lot that talks about this, and they've sensationalized it a little bit, but the fundamentals of it are absolutely true. At any time, anybody could be bought and sold through probate court, locked away with no contact from their family, and there's nothing you can do about it while they're stealing your assets. So I put a link to that too. So it's just, it boggles the mind. All of these things are happening all at once. So you have, your untouchables. And then on the flip side, we've got these one percenters and the oligarch. We are literally cattle being bought and sold here. And I don't think we get it yet. So, Kami John said he was watching it last night with his girlfriend. So what did you think of it? I Care a Lot. Yeah, it is infuriating. So it's amazing to me that when you start to see what's going on in this country, I'm starting to have a little soft spot for the QAnon people personally, because I'm like,
Well, now that you're officially a member.
Right. Well, but like they were barking up the wrong tree, right? They were talking about Pizzagate, and I'm like, no, you just needed to go to the island. you were in the wrong place entirely. It was Jeff Epstein and apparently some Wall Street bankers and Bill Clinton and Trump. Which, by the way, okay, so I saw this. I don't know if you saw the CPAC. CPAC literally made a golden idol to Trump. And what was killing me is like, wait, aren't they a bunch of evangelicals? Wouldn't they recognize that symbology of the golden calf? So
Yes, and didn't he just get voted off the island?
Well, okay, according to Q, he's coming back. And wasn't that the whole reason why we were trying to do the second impeachment, second or third or wherever we were with the impeachment, to prevent him from ever having a chance to come back? So if I'm a DNC operative and I don't give a shit whether Democrats win or lose because I make money, and that is true, then I want Trump to come back. Because here we have, like the Empire Strikes Back, the evil overlords coming back, and that's great for fundraising. Could give a shit less what happens to people, but so it's just talking about Hollywood and reality. That sets up the perfect narrative for DNC folks to just completely screw the pooch again. So all right, so Kami John says QAnon folks basically stormed the Bastille, but in the effort to keep King Louis in power. Yes. Now imagine if we could get those people and say, hey, maybe you want to take a look at this, and here are the things that are actually true. You were sort of on the right track, and then you got derailed because that entire movement was just to keep you spinning your wheels and off the right track. So yeah, so I think I've ranted enough. Apparently not, according to Kami John, who thinks that he and I need to vote you off the island, Andy.
Yes, well, Kami John, I'd like to introduce you to a murder of crows across the street from Carrie's house.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yes, unite the working class, Kami John. Yeah, that's Rainbow Coalition. All of us Skittles who are being stepped on. Rainbow Coalition. So that's all I got, Andy. That's enough ranting for me. That was quite the package today that you put forward. Well, I had to make up for Friday. That's true. If you take Friday off, you get twice as much work on Monday. Twice as much. Twice as awesome. So okay, well then yes. So we will be back on Friday, and shout out to Siemens Wednesday. Oh. I was trying to take another day off. Thank you. What are you, Congress? Get back here. Exactly. So we will be back here on Wednesday. Shout out to Siemens high school students and the junior class. Get your act together. Make some real change in your local community. Have that conversation. So good on you. And then I heard that there is a big event coming up in Detroit with Rome Bethia. So we'll have some more information coming out on that by Wednesday. So this is kind of a big deal when we talk about Rainbow Coalition. Woo, it's coming up. So, all right, have a good day. Any final thoughts, Andy? No, I'm good. I think we've covered it all. There doesn't need to be really anything else added to it. Because that whole thing that you explained about with the Robert's rules and everything, I basically felt like having a lobotomy for me. So I'm pretty much done now. But thank you for that, Carrie. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed our show today. It was a bit of a deep dive, but we hope it was informative for you. And enjoy the rest of your day and Tuesday. And we will see you bright and early on Wednesday morning. Take care.
We bout that, ayy. We in the zone, we out here, yeah. Speeding the facts, how it's supposed to be. Hair of the dog, we keep it G. Whoa.